impacting lives, building leaders all around the world. Let us keep our dreams alive, cause tomorrow's gonna be a better day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new Kectil's podcast episode that is about Armenia at a crossroads, peace, borders, and the future, where we explore critical global issues through the voices of youth. I'm your host, Nabila Abbas, and today we are diving into a fascinating discussion about Armenia, its geography, culture, and most importantly, its roadmap to regional peace. Before I ask my today's very passionate and young speaker to introduce himself, I would also highlight here Kectil's podcast, one of, victorious news, and that is about that Kectil has reached 7,500 podcast downloads. And I believe this is because of our lovely audience. Keep loving us and keep listening to the Kectil podcast episodes as usual. Joining us today, our young speaker from Armenia, Edvard. Edvard, welcome to the show. And I would love hearing about yourself, and our audience as well is passionate to hear about yourself, your work, how is your life, and what you do.
Hello, Nabila. Thank you very much for this introduction. It sounds really inspiring. It's truly an honor to be here today and to discuss such an important topic with you. My name is Edvard Grigorian, and I am an Armenian young leader, peace builder, and international relations graduate student at the College of Europe in Belgium. I'm studying the EU international relations and diplomacy in Belgium, and I have a wider view on how the EU international politics work. I'm also the co-founder of Kectil Armenia, which is a local center of the Kectil program based in Armenia and working for young leaders around the world. In recent years, I have worked with numerous peace-building and conflict resolution organizations, including the United States Institute of Peace, the Carter School of Peace and Conflict Resolution in DC, and Hanson Leadership Institute, which is part of the University of San Diego. I have been actively involved in initiatives promoting dialogue, conflict resolution, and cooperation in South Caucasus. One thing that I am highly passionate about is fostering sustainable peace and finding ways for young people to play an active role in shaping our region's future. I look forward to this conversation, Nabila.
Thank you very much, Edward. Such a lovely introduction and such an inspiration work you have been doing. And as you said, I think this is a very, spotlight headline as well, that Kectil Armenia chapter is operating very soon. So I think this is amazing. And this is because of all the Kectil colleagues who are from Armenia. And I think the unity, the teamwork is amazing. And now we are going to explore about Armenia, a land of history, mountains, and culture. I would like to ask you that before we dive into the peace discussion, let us just first explore Armenia itself. Many people may not be familiar with the country beyond the headlines, right? Could you tell us about Armenia's geography, its landscape, and why it holds such historical and geographical importance?
Thank you, first of all, Nabila, for kind words about Kectil Armenia. We are working really hard trying to make a difference and bring a change to the capacity that we can reach. And we are inspired by young people around the world that are in Kectil program, and they are supporting our work. About Armenia, it's I think very important to introduce where is Armenia and what is the history of Armenia, because I believe not many of our listeners heard about it. So Armenia is a landlocked nation in the South Caucasus, poised at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. I call it a bridge between East and the West, and it has been the target for many empires throughout the history. Armenia is known as the land of mountains. Armenia offers breathtaking landscapes featuring iconic peaks like Mount Aragat and Hustup, which are very beautiful mountains in Armenia and provide breathtaking views here. One can not talk about Armenia and not mention Mount Ararat, which stands as a profound cultural and historical symbol for Armenians. Mount Ararat is mentioned in the Bible, and it's where the Noah's Ark landed, according to the historical legend. Strategically, Armenia's location has long been of geographical significance. It's nestled between Russia, Turkey, and Iran. You can imagine how tense the region gets. This unique setting has made the country both a vital link between civilizations and a focal point for regional conflicts. Despite enduring decades of struggles, setbacks, and the challenges of rebuilding from the ashes, Armenia has forged a resilient path marked by democracy, prosperity, and a high quality of life. Yet, even today, its geography continues to influence its foreign policy and security challenges, which we face today as Armenians.
Wow. I mean, this is amazing. I think I'm learning like more about Armenia through your, conversation. And when you said like Armenia is a bridge between Asia and West, I think that is why geographically it is very important on the map as well. So wow, this is amazing. I think our audience would also be, learning more about Armenia, its geography, and just like some students in college, they don't like geography because sometimes it is very complicated, or maybe it is explained as very complicated to them. And through these, conversations like you and me, I think it becomes very easier to understand about different countries. And to be very honest, like I also learned about Armenia for the very first time through Kectil because I met one of our beautiful colleague Kohorek, and I think that was my first experience as well that I learned about Armenia, and that is why we say that Kectil is a global platform which is very accessible to everyone, and it promotes diversity, inclusivity, and you as well is one of those examples because now today you are speaking on Kectil podcast, and I think these are genuine conversations. So thank you very much explaining to us about Armenia's geography in a very easy verse. Thank you for that as well. So you have just mentioned like even like when we search about Armenia, it is said that it is a land of mountains. So like with breathtaking landscapes. But beyond geography, culture plays a huge role in shaping national identity. What are some key aspects of Armenian culture that defines its people and heritage?
That's an interesting question. Thank you very much for that. Uh, First, yeah, through Kectil, I'm learning so much about the other countries, and I'm so happy that I can give you something like give some information about Armenia and present my culture. And I'm learning every day entering to the Kectil platform. I'm learning so much about countries around the world. So, answering to your question, I think I would mention that Armenian culture is deeply rooted in history, faith, and resilience. I would like to mention three main things that I would like our audience to remember about Armenia and its people. First, I would mention that Armenia is the first Christian nation. Armenia was the first country to adopt Christianity as a state religion in 301 AD. The Armenian Apostolic Church has been more than just a place of worship. It has safeguarded Armenian identity for centuries, preserving traditions even during foreign rule. Church was the center that was uniting Armenians around the world, and it's still uniting today. Second point that I want to mention is the power of language. The Armenian alphabet, created by Mesopotamians in the 5th century in 405, became a unifying force for the nation. It ensured the survival of Armenian literature and history, keeping the culture alive despite centuries of conquest. Truly, I believe that Armenian language is a uniting factor because whenever I hear someone speaking Armenian, I feel something connected, something familiar. And that third point that I wanted to mention is the legacy of art and traditions. From the stunning medieval architecture of Ani, Gerard, and Datev to the rich flavor of Armenian cuisine like lavash, orovat, dolma, which are the traditional cuisine features of Armenia, Armenia's heritage thrived through its art, music, and communal traditions, inspiring Armenians worldwide. These pillars of faith, language, and cultural legacy define Armenia, shaping a nation that has enduring and continues to inspire. I really believe that these three pillars are highly important to keep the Armenian nation going and to present ourselves to the wider world.
Wow, this is great. Like such a unique way of, presenting Armenia's, uh, geography and then its, history. And these three pillars, what you have just mentioned, like the language and the First Nation as a Christian, and also the power of art and tradition, this is very richful. It is incredible how Armenia's identity is woven with history, culture, and resilience. But with such a significant past, modern Armenia faces many challenges, especially when it comes to its geopolitical situation. So let us now move into the critical topic of peace and cross-border relations, which is, of course, today's episodes one of the highlight, one of the spotlight to discuss. So we are just moving to the segment two, Armenia at a crossroads, the importance of peace. So Edward, Armenia's location at the crossroads of civilizations has not only shaped its culture, but also brought geopolitical complexities. Can you walk us through some of the major regional challenges Armenia faces today?
Yes, Nabila, thank you very much for the question. And I have to admit, this is the painful part that I have to present. I like more presenting the culture, tradition, and history of Armenia, which is more beautiful part. But here we are with challenges that Armenia faces. So, Armenia stands as the only democracy in the South Caucasus today, facing significant geopolitical challenges rooted in the unresolved conflicts and deep regional tensions. So, I would like to present it in three main subtopics. First one, let's talk about the Nagorno Karabakh conflict and Armenian prisoners of war. Uh, I know that the conflict is not that huge, but in 2020, we had a war with neighboring country called Azerbaijan. In 2020, Nagorno-Karabakh war left lasting territorial and humanitarian scars on Armenians. And despite ongoing negotiations, durable peace remains elusive. Beyond the conflict, Armenia continues to push for the release of 23 Armenian hostages held in Azerbaijan prisons, including former Nagorno-Karabakh officials and prisoners of war. This is a very painful topic to talk about, but these individuals were forcibly detained after Azerbaijan's 2023 military offensive, following the mass exodus of 100,000 plus ethnic Armenians. Yes, this exodus, this ethnic cleansing is going on in a small part of the world called South Caucasus, and it's really hard to speak about it when the world is not that interconnected and people are not that much interested. But I think the Kectil podcast is a great platform to talk about. Reports indicate that inhuman treatment, psychological abuse, and shame trials violate international law, including the Geneva Convention, which is one of the most important protectors of international law, especially the humanitarian law. Detainees are denied due process, consent into confession, and subjected to degrading conditions. Among them is one of the most popular officials in Nagorno-Karabakh. His name is Ruben Vartanyan, and he's on hunger strike. This person was detained in Azerbaijan already for a long time, since September 2023, and the person faces unlawful trial. He's coming from Armenia, where we have democracy, and he's in Azerbaijan going under the unlawful trial process. And in this process, to show his discontent and his fight against the break of the international rules, Ruben Vartanyan started a hunger strike, protesting his unlawful detention. This is not just a humanitarian crisis. I want to say to our audience that it is a direct challenge to the rule-based international order. The international community must demand Azerbaijan's compliance with international humanitarian law and the immediate release of all detainees to uphold justice and human dignity. As a person who specialized in international relations, I believe that rule-based international order is a collective responsibility. And if we see the breach of rules in any point in the world, and we close the blind eye, we turn the blind eye and we don't speak about it, It's our collective responsibility. All the consequences are our responsibilities. From the part of Nagorno-Karabakh, we can smoothly move to the part of Turkey. Armenia has close borders with Turkey since 1993. Turkey has kept its borders with Armenia sealed, linking its opening to a resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict and Armenian demands for Armenian genocide recognition. This blockade has significantly impacted Armenia's economic and geopolitical position. What I find unfair here is that Armenia's relations with Turkey are defined by the relations with Azerbaijan. I don't think that any country's relation with another one should be defined by some ongoing conflict with another country. Each country should build its relations separately and in isolation. In this part, I would like to also mention that yesterday, our prime minister first time hosted the journalists coming from Turkey and had discussion with them. And I believe this is the first step that opens the road for better negotiations and influential development of the relations with Turkey. I hope that one day we will be able to resolve all the issues and finally open the borders, which will be economically beneficial for both Armenia and Turkey. And moving to the third part, I would like to mention another huge actor in the region. As I mentioned, we are in crossroads of East and West, Asia and Europe. And here, one of the major players is Russia. Armenia traditionally relied on Russia as a security partner, but Moscow's role is increasingly questioned as Armenia strengthens ties with Europe and the West. Balancing this shift while maintaining regional stability is a crucial challenge. As we know, Russia waged a full-scale war against Ukraine. And I don't think that Russia will stop in front of anything. It literally declared war to the world, breaking the international rule. International rule-based international order should be kept. And as I mentioned, it's the responsibility of all the nations. If we lead Russia, Azerbaijan, and other dictatorship regimes like this to violate international rule, then we should ask a question to ourselves. Why did we create the international humanitarian law or overall the laws that all countries are following? I think that to go against these dictatorship regimes and prevent spread of authoritarianism in our regions, we should fight together and speak about it, make it known. Despite these obstacles, actually, Armenia is actively working to redefine its role through economic connectivity and proactive diplomacy, seeking a future built on peace and stability.
Thank you very much, Edward, for such a brief explanation about Armenia's situation and also about the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict and Armenia's situation. I believe, like, for our audience as well, like, if most of the young people is not familiar about these, conflict and the situation of Armenia, so through this Kectil podcast episode, they can learn more about Armenia's role in peace and its struggle against conflict as well. And thank you again that how is, like, in easy words, you have break down all these events and you tried your best to convey the message to the audience. I think that this is very much clear. And how Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has devastated Armenia's socio-economic situation as well. And you just mentioned a very good thing during this answer as well, like how some countries, sealed borders for Armenia. And I think that is unethical as well, in my personal point of view as well. And you also said it very well, like, no one should decide the future of some other countries based on conflict, because they are already in a struggling period, they are already in efforts, and it is our collectively responsibility that we should support them, not only morally but also economically as well. However, these topics are very wide and very sensitive sometimes as well for the young people. But I encourage your bravery. I encourage your stand for your country. And we hope that, like, in the end, you said, like, very passionately that, like, despite all these challenges, Armenia is actively working to redefine its role. And I think they are doing their best. You, as a young person from your country, is a true representative and ambassador. And you are, we have heard, like, if you can talk about this as well, that you speak in Geneva as well. If you want to share some highlights from that before we go to another question.
Yes, that would be great to share. Thank you for the question, Nabila. Actually, I went to the Geneva in Switzerland. We visited a couple of offices of the international organizations, including the United Nations. We visited the World Trade Organization and International Red Cross. And in these organizations, my first and foremost goal was to discover what these organizations are doing for preserving international rule-based order. I realized that these organizations try to find solutions. They came up with certain mechanisms and systems, but they face challenge. And the challenge are dictatorship regimes. Not all countries align with the rules that democratic countries uphold. Some countries decided they live in the world that they can do whatever they want. And as they have the power of a state, which is the huge power in, I think that's the most powerful thing you can have in your hands, they are abusing it. And abusing this power, they try to violate the rules that we work on. I think after the Second World War and after the end of the Cold War, we created a regime, international rule-based order that is working. And the main threat are people who think that they can violate the order. And in my visit to Geneva, I spoke about the role of the democracies. Democracies should stand together. We should show the way that the international rule-based order should work. And speaking in Geneva, I realized that all people working in that organizations, in UN, in International Red Cross, World Trade, they all believe in the rule-based order. But international organizations are just the united version of the countries in the world. And if it's a family for me, and if one member of the family doesn't want the consensus, doesn't want to agree on the rules, it spoils the whole family and the decisions go bad. I think what I understood from the visits to these organizations, the solution is unity. We should decide collectively and we should stand up for the rights of each other. That's the way out, Nabila, I think.
Yeah, this is inspiring when you said that the solution is unity. I totally agree with that. And thank you very much for being a true ambassador of your country and also trying to connect all the young people globally as well. Your effort does matter, and we congratulate you on speaking in Geneva as well. I hope that your efforts will yield some results. We have to keep, trying, and we should not give it up. Let's just move to the other question, which is also relevant to the piece, the conversation which we are just, talking about. In the light of, these challenges, like the conflict, Armenia has introduced the Crossroads of Peace initiative. I think this is very interesting. So can you explain what this roadmap entails and how it aims to transform Armenia's role in regional diplomacy?
Thank you very much for your support, Nabila. I really feel inspired each time talking with about Armenia, about the politics in Armenia, and it inspires me when young leaders like you, like Kectil colleagues, speak about the things that I did, and they inspire me. Thank you very much for that. Speaking about the Crossroads of Peace initiative, I wanted to mention that Crossroads of Peace is the initiative of the government of Armenia. Armenia came up with the Crossroads of Peace initiative right after the war that we faced. This Crossroads of Peace initiative entails the creation of the connectivity, economic ties between Turkey, Iran, Georgia, as well as Azerbaijan, and all these connectivity roads will pass through Armenia. So this approach echoes the post-World War II European integration, where economic interdependence, exemplified by the creation of the European coal and steel community, led to the groundwork for the European Union. Just as Europe transformed its conflict-ridden past into a future of shared prosperity and peace, Armenia's vision aimed to create a similar model in the South Caucasus. The challenge remains ensuring that all regional actors engage in the vision with genuine commitment. So the government of Armenia came up with the vision. Government of Armenia said that we want peace because for democracies to thrive, the peace is the best way. But the question rises here, how many countries in our region want to have peace? Because some countries, especially dictatorship regimes, keep their power through dictatorship. How the leaders in the world, like dictators that have been in the power for many years, cope with the challenges and stay in power. Let's take the example of Russia. Putin has been in power, and at some point he realized that he needs some movement. He needs something to do, external conflict that will keep him in power. The same is happening in the case of Azerbaijan. To keep the power, they are starting war and keeping the conflict going. At this moment, Armenian government is fighting for peace. And I believe that one day we will be able to convince all the countries in the region through democracy, through diplomacy, and our own example that the peace is the right way to go.
Yeah, that is true. And that is a very, I think, thought-provoking question that you have just said in the end, like, but how many countries want peace? And that is true. Like, it is a very thought-provoking question to ponder about it. Like, the how Ukraine, Palestine, Yemen, like there are so many countries which are suffering right now in the, as in conflict zone countries, even in this modern world, even if we are sitting in 2025 and still we are hearing the voices of, bombs and other mode of violence during the war as well, and even not following the international law of the war as well. So this is devastating. But still, we have a hope because young people like you, young people like in the world is a doorway to hope, and your efforts and others, young people as a unity, we can bring peace together because these are like the new generation. And if they struggle for the peace together as a unity, as a team, I think someday we can yield some results as well. And also, like you have mentioned about this roadmap that your government is planning to introduce this very transformational, life-changing corridors linking idea of Armenia with its neighborhoods like Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iran, and Georgia. If you want to just give us a quick glimpse, like out of the question, how is your relation with Azerbaijan and like these following countries?
Yes, yeah, sure, Nabila. Thank you very much for the question. That's an interesting question because it can be a personal view as well. But as I perceive the relations with our neighboring countries as a person who studied international relations and diplomacy, I would start with the relations with Georgia. Well, relations with Georgia are going really well. We have historical partners and we do a lot of trade together. And I think Georgia is a country that will be, in the view of Armenia, the closest partner in the region. Secondly, I will talk about Iran. Of course, Iran is under international sanctions, but we have had historically good relations with Iran. Even though Iran has different religion, different way of government, different principles, I think the relations with Iran are defined well, especially when we have close borders with Azerbaijan and Turkey. Iran creates a more trustworthy partner in the region. And historically, Armenia and Iran aligned their policies. And I should mention also that there are a lot of Armenians who live in the territory of Iran. And historically, Armenians lived really well there. I know that Iran is accepted by international community as the a country who breaks the rules, international rules, but I believe that as a partner in the region, Iran is trustworthy and important for the foreign policy and diplomacy of Armenia. Regarding Turkey, with Turkey, as I mentioned, we have the close borders and we have the issue of Armenian genocide. So to mention it quickly, in 1915, during the First World War, Turkey conducted Armenian genocide. There were 1.5 million Armenians living in the territory of Turkey. There were more, but Turkey, then regime of the Turkey, decided to conduct Armenian genocide and get rid of the Armenians living there. And Turkey killed 1.5 million Armenians, and that became historical obstacle for the relations and mutual trust between Armenia and Turkey. Now, at this moment, as Armenian government is promoting peace and has the peace vision, we think to reconsider the recognition of genocide. As the government mentioned recently, at this point, we can discuss the genocide issue. And I think it is one of the biggest obstacles on the way of the friendship and reconciliation of relations between Turkey and Armenia. At this point, I think that as young people, and I have many Turkish friends, I believe that historical issues can be reconciled. But the point of view that I hold firmly, I would say, is that historical crimes against humanity should be punished. And I think that even we postpone the recognition of genocide, we should still keep it in our foreign policy. Because for me, violation of international law, it doesn't matter during the First World War or before that. Conducting the crime against humanity, it shouldn't be unpunished. Because other nations, if they see that Turkey conducted genocide and it is not punished, other countries would think that it's allowed and the international community allows for it. And countries will think that it's allowed through the international law, and it will become a standard to kill a person for his ethnic group, his nationality. It's a biggest violation. It's crime against humanity, and it should be punished. And at any point, I believe that the right way to go is for Turkey to recognize Armenian genocide. And the only country I didn't mention was Azerbaijan. And with Azerbaijan, I will start with good news. 2 days ago, the Armenian and Azerbaijani governments declared that they reached an agreement, which was surprising for me because since 2020 war, we didn't have the peace agreement. And already 5 years, they are negotiating on the peace agreement. It took time, 5 years. But the thing that I'm most worried about is the content of the peace agreement. If they reached an agreement, it should be a consensus on the issue that they were debating already 5 years. And I can express my opinion, it's good or not, only after I see the content of the peace agreement. Because even though the Armenian government wants peace, but we are not ready to give away more territories or get along with the exodus and ethnic cleansing of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, as well as the prisoners of war who are tortured in the prisons in Baku in Azerbaijan. I tried to express my opinion about the relations with our neighbor countries as short as possible. And I think that's the best view that I can express as a young leader and as a person who studied international relations.
Yeah, thank you very much, Edward, for such a wonderful, analysis. I think it is like mix of like research based as well as your personal views, and also because you are student of international relations, and also because you are a young leader, and that is why like Kectil is providing this platform through podcast that you can speak about your personal opinion as well. And thank you very much for giving such a very brief analysis about your country's relation with neighboring countries. And I believe like neighboring countries plays a very important role in peace and prosperity. And I'm happy like majority your neighbors have good relations with your country and vice versa your country with those countries. And also you have just mentioned about peace agreement with Azerbaijan and Armenia, and I think that is a good news, even though like after 5 years. And I can understand like how these 5 years can be very tough for young people because sometimes also, yeah, also that you have mentioned, despite having a very devastating history with Turkey as well, when you were explaining about conflict situation of Armenia and how they seal the borders, but still you have, you just friendly mentioned, yeah, because despite all these past issues, today's young person is very happy to make friendship with others young people from different countries despite like conflict histories as well. And I think this is one of the positivity, this is one of the strength for us as well. So thank you very much. And I think if we learn about neighboring countries relation as well, it gives us more clarity that how the situation is working on the world map and how geographically countries are doing their best to promote peace and prosperity. So thank you once again, and let's just stick to our previous conversation about Crossroad Peace Initiative by U.S. government. Building peace is never simple, and also you also have that thought-provoking question as well, like how many countries want peace, especially in a region with deep-rooted tensions. What are the key elements that make this initiative of your government different from past efforts?
Exactly, Nabila. I think that this platform gives me opportunity to speak, to share my personal point of view, and I think it gives also the opportunity for people who live in that countries who are not as free as Armenia or other democratic countries to listen to the view of others. Like I just imagine the situation in Azerbaijan. Like people are suppressed, the young people don't have freedoms, but they listen to the governmental propaganda through the news. And the new news media is also governed by the dictatorship regime, by the government. And I think they listen only the things that the government wants them to listen. And I just understood that Kectil platform is a great place for giving these people opportunity to hear another point of view, especially the podcasts. When the people speak genuinely, share their point of view, they speak about the issues they are concerned of, and I mean the relations, people to people relations. These are the best ways to learn about each other. I think Kectil platform is a great platform for those who live in the countries where the, especially media and news that we receive are controlled by the governments. Thank you very much also for the question. I think these the main key elements that make this initiative stand out are first of all the economic cooperation. So what makes this initiative unique is its emphasis on the economic cooperation as a tool for peace. As I brought the example of the European Union before, the economic cooperation is a great tool to reach the peace. So if the countries are interdependent economically, I buy something from you, you buy something from me, what is my incentive to attack you? So I think the economic cooperation is a great tool to build the peace, at least the foundation for peace. Unlike previous diplomatic efforts that often stalled due to political disagreement, Crossroads of Peace seeks to create tangible economic benefits that encourage stability. Another key aspect is inclusivity. It aims to involve not just governments, but also civil society, businesses, and youth leaders in shaping regional cooperation. So, at this point, I should mention that we should be critical. Civil society in Armenia is highly developed. Civil society is one of the most powerful machines promoting the policies behind the government. And civil society has the power to bring forward the young leaders who will bring the change. But being critical, I should mention that the countries who try to exercise control over all the fields in the country systematize the dictatorship regime and impose the rules on civil society, which restrict and limit their development, um, would be not the best case to engage in the peace cooperation. Armenia is positioning itself as a neutral mediator, which is a shift from previous politics focused primarily on defense and security. But at this point, I believe that this Crossroads of Peace initiative has a long way to go. But we should ensure that the rights of civil society, especially the young leaders who are the drivers behind the peace, are respected.
Thank you very much. And this is great. The key element is emphasizing on economic cooperation as a tool for peace. And I hope that this initiative does work in the future very soon. And we wish the government of Armenia best of luck for that as well. And of course, like Armenia's government is putting a lot of efforts and they are introducing a lot of good initiatives and other programs to promote peace and prosperity. And I think through these efforts, it is very much clear that Armenia wants peace and prosperity. So let us just move to our one of the favorite segment 3, that is the role of youth in peace building, because Kectil itself is a platform with thousands of young people from different countries gathering together on this one platform through doing their assignments on different topics, which are also relevant to leadership, governance, democracy, and many more. So I believe through this segment, we can learn more about youth role and maybe their personal views, maybe their general life in XYZ country. So, Edward, youth are often left out of peace discussions, yet they are the ones who will shape the future. How do you see young Armenians contributing to peace and efforts? And do you feel that youth voices are being heard? And also because you are also one of those young people from Armenia, and we know that how much efforts you are bringing by traveling to different countries, speaking in Geneva, and also being part with Kectil as well. So tell us a general, a lifestyle of young people in Armenia as well before you answer this question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nabila, for this question. I will be honest. This is my favorite part of Kectil podcasts. When I listen to Kectil podcasts, I want to hear the role of youth part and what role the young people play in their countries. And this is the part that I am listening to with the most concentration. And today I am the one speaking in this part, and it's bringing a huge amount of responsibility on me. First of all, speaking about the youth life in Armenia, I would say that it's inspiring. There is a lot of competition, but the competition is not for showing off and being the best and first ever, but the competition is for doing good for your country. I don't think it's just my circle of friends, but everyone is trying to bring something positive to Armenia. I have many, many friends working in civil society and developing their own organizations. Most of my friends have their own NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who are working in civil society and trying to bring change. Some of them are concentrated on peace building, some of them on youth empowerment, capacity building, environment, climate change, and some of them are also concentrated on politics. They're understanding how politics work, and try to bring youth perspective and youth voices in politics. I think this is the most beautiful thing that I can express about the youth in Armenia, that they're inspired to bring change. They're so motivated, and there is so much competition for bringing change and positive results through their work, that when you find yourself in this society where all young people are loving their country so much and want to work for their country so much, that they don't want to give turns to each other. You initially, it doesn't mean you want it, it doesn't matter you want it or not. You start working toward that. You start bringing change, you start making connections, you start building the building the future generation that's coming after you to continue your work. I think this is the most beautiful thing about the youth life in Armenia.
Thank you very much, Edward. And yes, we need institutional mechanism that empower young people to participate directly in policy discussions and peace negotiations. And I think most of the time, even young people does reach that platform and they have accessibility to that platform. But then it comes uh, to the point of inclusivity where some of the voices are being excluded. And it does happen sometimes with young people because they are young. So these discussions are meant for the maybe for the political leaders sometimes, and that is why young people are under, maybe suppressed or underpresent during these discussions. However, let us have a good hope, and through young people like you and other around the globe whom are making so much efforts, they're traveling to different countries. I think these efforts does matter, and these are not just common efforts, these are very unique efforts. And we also once again thank you for your bravery, your clear stance about global peace and prosperity, and also your passion for your country as well, while representing it at different global platforms. However, still, there's a question. What do you think it will take for Armenia and its neighbors to move from conflict to long term cooperation? How would you respond to it?
Thank you very much for inspiration and this beautiful question, Nabila. Um, Before answering the question, I wanted to bring an historical example that I was researching recently. Um, Youth making a significant impact in the Franco-German Youth Office. So this office was established in 1963 under the Elysee Treaty. This pioneering initiative forged a vital link between former adversaries, laying the groundwork for the long-lasting reconciliation and integration that eventually led to the modern European project. I was researching this recently, and I understood that if we start making the first steps for peace and stability in the region, should start from the young people. And young people are the ones who can connect easily and break the transgenerational trauma, the trauma of feeling that you face the enemy. And I think for our parents, it will be really hard to change, as the conflict is long standing for them. But for us, I think it's still possible. It's still possible to understand that on the other side, you don't have an enemy, but you have a young person with whom you can connect. Uh, Driving to the answer to your question, I would say that a combination of trust building measures, economic interdependence, and long term commitment to dialogue is essential for sustainable peace. One of the biggest obstacles is the deep seated mistrust between nations. We need sustained people to people diplomacy. I think also educational exchanges and cultural cooperation to foster understanding. Additionally, regional economic projects that provide shared benefits will create incentives for lasting peace. Furthermore, international organizations and mediators must prioritize grassroots initiative rather than focusing on solely on high-level political negotiations, from where the young people are usually excluded. Recently, I was reading a book about Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. I would recommend this book in our podcast so that people, if our audience is more interested on the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, I would recommend to read Black Garden by Thomas de Waal. And in this book, Thomas de Waal mentions that OSCE, Organization for Cooperation and for Security and Cooperation in Europe, largely worked only with governments, neglecting engagement with society. This was their mistake. I believe that the grassroots initiatives are highly important. And this was one of the key reasons why the OSCE failed in its mediation efforts, highlighting the need for more inclusive and comprehensive peace process.
Thank you, Edward, for such a brief answer. And you said it very well, like one of the biggest obstacle is the deep-seated mistrust between nations. And I think this is very loud and outspoken statement, and I totally agree with that as well. And thank you very much for recommending our audience to read this book, Black Garden. So as a host, I also recommend to all the listeners that please, you can download this book in PDF format, however, like you can access it. So you must read this to learn more about Nagorno-Karabakh conflict as well, and the Armenia's efforts and situations during the conflict. So thank you very much, Edward. Thank you very much for such a wonderful, insightful conversation, and how in easy words, you had explained about Armenia's role during the conflict, its efforts, and the role of young people as well. And also how you explained the geography of Armenia. And I think this is very much clear so far for audience as well, for me as well. And it looks like I have learned a chapter about Armenia as a student right now. And I'm feeling like very richful that I have a content about Armenia. And also I have some, personal point of view as well from the local from Armenia. So I would like, before we wrap up, what message you would like to share with our listeners, especially those who are passionate about peace and international relations? And also, if you can, you can add any information which you think it is important to add before we wrap up this session. So it is like an open, wrap up. Yeah, over to you.
Wow, Nabila, the time flew actually. I didn't even understand how time flew, and we reached to the end of this beautiful podcast. I was so inspired speaking and sharing about Armenia and the experience of Armenian people that I lost the track of time. Answering your question, I would encourage everyone, especially young leaders, to see peace building as a long-term commitment rather than just temporary effort. Conflict resolution is not about quick solutions, but about fostering understanding and sustainable relations. We all have a role to play in breaking the cycle of conflict, whether through dialogue, education, or be it policy work. Every small step toward cooperation matters. As Jean Monnet, I would like to mention Jean Monnet. He was one of the architects of European Union. Once he said, "Nothing is possible without men. Nothing is lasting without institutions." This reminds us that peace is not just an aspiration, but a structured process that requires long-term dedication and institution building.
Nothing is possible without man. Nothing is lasting without institutions. That is very inspiring, I think, in the wrap-up session. These are very, strong words and very inspiring. Thank you so much for joining us today, Edward. It has been a privilege to learn more about Armenia, its vision for peace, and also to our listeners as well. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to subscribe and share it with others. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep the conversation going on. And also remember, you can download the Kectil each episode on every platform which is accessible either in your Android phone or maybe in Apple phone. So yeah, thank you very much. Once again, signing off from your host, Nabila Abbas.